Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40K video. So today we will be taking a look at one of the leaks for the upcoming Genestealer Cult Codex. Now, we know that the Space Wolves are coming soon, probably it's going to be released next week really, so it's end of August, beginning of September. And we know that Orcs are going to be released in October. So there's a chapter approved is in December, more than likely, and the big FAQ is going to be sometime in September as well. So we don't yet know exactly when the Genestealer Cult Codex is coming, but it's going to be this year, and there's a good chance it could be in September. Now, one of the things that is also the reason I'm thinking that is because the Space Wolf Codex is obviously coming, but also the Tooth and Claw box set, which is Space Wolves versus Genestealer Cult. Now, there's been some images of new Genestealer Cult models walking around. You've got Cult Eastwood, which is the new what looks like could be Primus figure, who's got like 3 revolvers and a trench coat, who looks really cool. You've also got the new Aberrant models, which look very good. They're a little mono-pose, but not too bad. But one of the big ones is the Aberrant character, the Abominant, like the abominable snowman, the Abominant. And we now get a good look at his rules. And let's take a look at it now. So we don't know, obviously, how much this guy's going to cost, but he is 4 power level. So that is about the same price as a Space Marine Captain. And Genestealer Cult characters in the past have always been around, between about 60 points. 50, Icon Walls are 50 odd points. The other two are sort of 70 points. Then obviously you've got the Patriarch, who's way above. But this guy looks like he's probably going to cost the same amount as maybe a little bit more as a Primus. Okay? Now, what do you get for your 4 power level, possibly 70, 80 points? You get movement 6, standard. Weapon skill 3+, perfectly standard. You get strength, your bliss skill 6+, which is irrelevant. He doesn't have any shooting, this guy. Strength 6, which is fantastic. Toughness 5, which is really, really tough. A 5 wounds, which is nice. That's really nice. So far, really good stat line. Only 3 attacks, which is a little, he could do with more attacks, personally. Most combat characters have 4. Or a way of gaining, or at least, 3 in a chainsword. Anyway. Then he has Leadership 8, which is whatever. But he only has a 5+ save. Now, that is pretty standard for Genestealer Cult. Most things only have a 5+ save, so I'm not too bothered about that. This guy is going to be relying on the fact that he's toughness 5 with 5 wounds. That's what he's relying on his base stats to stay alive. He will be able to shrug off small arms fire easily. Even bolters are you need a minimum of a heavy bolter to start hurting this guy properly. But he will be vulnerable to proper anti-tank weapons, which is fine. I guess at the end of the day, he is a big hulking monstrosity. You need to bring a big gun to bring him down. Cool. Now, he's armed with a rending claw and a power hammer, and it is guided by a mindworm familiar, which attacks using its familiar claws. The rending claw is possibly the most redundant weapon in 40k right now. It is pointless on this model. It's absolutely fantastic on other models, but on this model it's completely redundant because he's armed with the power sledgehammer. Now, the power sledgehammer is an absolute beast of a weapon. Okay, it is strength ×2, AP -3, D6 damage, and does a minimum of 3 damage. Damage rolls of a 1 or 2 made this weapon counts as 3. So that is like a Thunderhammer turned up on steroids. That is absolutely just insane. That is the equivalent. It's basically the equivalent of a close combat neutron laser. but it's strength ×2. This guy's strength 6. That is strength 12. If you put Might from Beyond on this guy, assuming it stays the way it is, that makes him strength 14, which is insane. Okay, which means this guy can wound things like tanks on 4s. Not 4s, sorry, on tanks on 2s. He can wound things like predators on 2s with Might from Beyond. That's nasty. With the potential, if he gets all his hits with the Primus nearby, this guy, if Primus is the same, hits on 2s, that's a minimum of 9 damage. A minimum. This guy could easily just wreck a tank on his own in one go and probably make his points back. Now the Mindworm Familiar is kind of interesting. It's basically it doesn't have you can't kill the Mindworm Familiar. It's part of the model. And after you've attacked with your normal weapon, so the Power Hammer, you get to make 2 additional attacks of strength for AP minus nothing and 1 damage. Basically, you get 2 free bolter close combat attacks. That's okay. It does up his attacks to 5, but only 3 of them really count. It just means this guy is okay at also chewing through light infantry. Things like Guardsman. He's got things like Guardsman where, the Power Hammer's a bit overkill. 2 extra attacks, probably kill another Guardsman with that. That's quite useful. Now the abilities this guy has, Cult Ambush, of course, standard. The next one is really interesting. The Chosen One, that's the rule. Each unmodified hit roll of a 6 made in the fight phase for friendly aberrant units within 6 inches of this model scores 2 hits instead. Now that says each unmodified hit roll. Okay? Now I think that's been, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's been put in there very, very specifically. Because currently, should one last thing say about the Power Sledgehammer, it isn't -1 to hit with that weapon, so he is hitting on 3s, okay? But the reason I mention that is currently, with normal aberrants, with your sledgehammers, your power hammers, that is -1 to hit. Which means that these guys would never be able to get a 6 to hit with their sledgehammers, which means they'd never be able to get 2 hits instead of 1. This says unmodified hit roll. Now I think that's been put in there to just allow Power Hammer Aberrants to get extra hits. Now this also applies to this guy. So this guy has 3 attacks, plus he has 2 from his familiar, 5 attacks. You've got a good chance, hopefully that's a Power Hammer attack. You've got a good chance of this being him hitting 4 times this Power Hammer rather than 3. A lucky round is big. Now again, correct me if I'm wrong, but unmodified would also mean things like the Primus +1 to hit wouldn't allow you to make this on a 5 or 6. It's always got to be a 6. That's what I'm reading. Tell me what you think down in the rules. Okay, I know how modifiers work, but it's still a little funny in 8th edition how they work. So that's absolutely fantastic, the Chosen One. I love currently running 15 aberrants in my Genestealer cult army with 6 of them with power hammers versus power picks. This guy is just making them. I normally run a Primus with them. This guy's making me think I can just run this guy with them. This is good. This is very, very good. The next one's even better. Regenerative Flesh. At the start of each of your turns, this model regains D3 wounds. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. That's the potential to heal 3 wounds every turn. Basically, if you don't put this guy down, he's going to keep fighting. Things like Mauler Fiends and Helldrakes, which for Chaos, which have Infernal Regeneration, the fact that they heal 1 wound a turn is really annoying and really awesome. That's why I've gone and got 2 Mauler Fiends for my Chaos. Absolutely fantastic. Healing D3 wounds each turn. It's not once per game. Unbelievable. Now the Mindworm Familiar. Subtract 1 from the Psychic test taken for Psychics that are within 12 inches of enemy Abominants. That's fantastic. That is basically localized Shadow in the Warp. Now there's nothing saying that if this doesn't stack with Shadow in the Warp. So if you had some Tyranids plus this guy, if you were allying the 2 together, that gives -2 to enemy Psychic tests within 12 inches of this guy. That's a big deal. So there you go. Now the last one I think is actually the most important. Okay, which sounds crazy, but Bestial Vigor. When inflicted, this is the same. This is the same but different rule for what Aberrants currently have. Okay, when inflicting damage upon the model, reduce the damage characteristic of the attack by 1 to a minimum of 1. Now in the index, that's where that ends. You just 2 damage weapons do 1 damage to you, 3 damage weapons do 2 damage to you. You always just take 1 less damage to a minimum of 1. Okay. But this now continues. It says, in addition, roll a d6 each time this model loses a wound. On a 5+, the model does not lose a wound. 5+ feel no pain is so good. And this is what looks like to me the new standard Bestial Vigor rule. Which means all Aberrants will have this. Hopefully. All Aberrants will have this. Which makes Aberrants, which are already tough by Genestealer cult standards, even tougher. That's just, honestly, that's crazy. Yeah, absolutely crazy. And that bodes really well for making Aberrants. Currently are kind of overpriced. If they stay the same price, maybe go down in points a little bit. You're currently paying, Space Marine points for what is not a Space Marine. If Aberrants went down at like 1 or 2, 3 points maybe, and they got this rule, they become top tier instantly. Absolutely top tier. So, the last thing is standard rule for Genestealer cults. Unquestioning loyalty. Each time a Genestealer cult infantry character from your army loses a wound whilst within 3 inches of any other friendly Genestealer cult infantry unit, you can pick one of those units and roll a dice, and on 4+, the character does not lose a wound, but one model in that unit you picked, your choice is slain. So, it just, again, it makes... This guy is going to be really tough to deal with. Imagine this guy leading a pack of Aberrants, okay? But also next to this guy, you have some neophytes. Because you're always going to have some neophytes in your army. Because they're cheap. And they put out a bit of shooting. And they're good at screening. And so your Abominant starts taking some shots. Rather than having to put wounds on the Aberrants, which are expensive. On a 4, this guy's toughness 5, so he's going to be wounded on 5s by most small arms. He's got a 5+ save, so it stops a third of the damage. He then has a 5+ feel no pain. And then after all that, the bunch of neophytes can jump in front of wounds from a 4+. This is a tough character. This is a very, very tough character to deal with. This guy doesn't care if he's in close combat or not. He's always going to have people jumping in front of him. So, tell me what you guys think. I am very excited for this. It's been a while since we've done a little bit of Genestealer cult stuff on the channel. I am slowly in the shadows building up my army. Got 2 cultists painting in front of me right now. But tell me what you guys think, especially around that Chosen One rule. How do you think that interacts? Can you boost it up to 5s with Primuses, or is it always on 6s? Without Prime support, are Hammerants not going to be able to take advantage of it, or is it just on a 6 no matter what, this guy gets 2 hits? Tell me what you guys think. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.